and we can begin.
Shalom, my name is Dr. Eliah Israel. I happen to be the founder of the Afro-Asiatic Human Rights Association. And what I want to do is just talk about just a few issues. Number one, when we talk about Article 1, we're in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We want to talk about humans being born free and equal dignity and having rights, the same equal rights. Also, we want to talk about every child born having the right to a nationality. I want to say that here in America, first of all, them classifying me as a Negro, colored, black, none of those are a nationality, which is a big infraction against human rights laws, because it says that every child born is entitled to a nationality. So they refuse to tell us who and what we are. I'm not the color of a crayon. I'm not a second-class citizen. I'm not a federal de facto citizen. And so therefore, you know, that in itself, by them keeping us ignorant of who and what we are, me, myself, being Afro-Asiatic, Shemitic, Hebrew, American citizen, okay? I didn't find that out until I was 30-something years old. That in itself has to be a crime. That's inhumane, okay? Now, when we get to talking about dignity, if a man with the color of my hue and the texture of my hair asks questions, automatically we are penalized. We have been kidnapped. We have been falsely incarcerated just for the sake of asking questions such as, do I have a right to be free? Do I have a right to live with dignity? And do I have rights just to be human? These are violations that goes over and over. As I was traveling, even just the other day, my traveling was impeded by a de facto peace officer who decided that he wanted to take my goods for no other reason than the fact that I didn't meet his standards of qualifying to travel. And as a human, and also as an ambassador of Yahweh El Shaddai, of the Hebrews, who is the owner of the earth according to the scriptures, he stopped me from doing that. He impeded my right to travel. That in itself is another human rights violation. Now, I mentioned the term de facto. What a lot of people don't realize here is that there's one constitution for the United States of America, and then it was switched to United States Constitution of the Constitution of the United States, which is a federal, not national, because the U.S. is not listed in the nations of nations. It's the United States of America. So they have a national law, and they have what is called a federal de facto law, which voluntarily, unconsciously, makes people volunteer for enslavement. Even with, when we get to talking about applying for birth certificates, they try to force you to get a license to what they call drive, which is transferring and converting pardon me, our right to travel into a privilege, or which can be easily converted into a crime. That in itself is a human rights violation. population. Now, I also wanted to talk about a few more things real quick, if I can. I don't want to take up much of your time, but we do need to take up a little bit of time. So we want to talk about the freedom from discrimination. Okay? Now, oftentimes we find that here in what is called a penal institution, where African Americans or Afro-Asiatic Americans are less than 20% of the population, let's say, for example, in this state, but they are 80% of the population of the penal institution. The police are majority Caucasoid in every avenue. Okay, they have all the hierarchy positions, and it is a unconscious or a unwritten rule of thumb to just kidnap African Americans and violate their rights. Okay, under the auspices of federal law. Federal law itself is a violation of human rights. The classification of white, there's no such nationality as white in the family of nations. There's never been a nationality called colored, called black. Okay, so those in themselves is setting it up for discrimination. Okay, now the next thing is when we talk about freedom from slavery. Here in this country, they say that slavery is against the law except for voluntary slavery. And then they have created a system whereby you volunteer for slavery. As a matter of fact, they say that you are federal property, or they say that you are property of the state. Okay, so that in itself shows that that is a slaveromatic system. Okay, so that these de facto commercial laws that they put in place to just drain folks and keep a bond or a yoke upon a certain class of people is in fact enslavement. Okay, now they might not call it that, but that's literally what they are practicing here in America. Now, let me say this, that Article 3 talks about the right to life, liberty, and personal security. And I've also would like to add I'll come back to that one. But the right to life itself. Oh, I would like to add the right to privacy. The right to privacy. So what happens is that when they violate our privacy and make us be their property, then it automatically affects our right to live life like our culture, our nationality dictates. And it's real hard to live the way that your culture or your nationality dictates when they don't even tell you what your nationality is. Okay? They don't, it's hard to follow in the customs and the cultures of your ancestors when they don't even let you know who or what your ancestors were. So that in it itself violates the right to life or a lifestyle. Okay? peaceful, and harmonious. Now, let's deal with the right to liberty. Liberty is a word in which they, let's say, know not of, except for themselves. They're found kidnapping folks, just kidnapping, just pick people up without probable cause, and they act like they're the judge and the jury at the site and just incarcerate folks. This has happened to me several times, even though I had explained to the judge that they did not have subject matter jurisdiction. As a matter of fact, when I mentioned that term, the judge, to prove that she had subject matter jurisdiction, had me incarcerated. Okay? And I lost my home, I lost my family, I lost my vehicle, I lost the right to livelihood. Okay? By them just, kidnapping me, making me a political prisoner. Okay? A prisoner of a war that really was within their own mind and their own ego. Notice this, because I have not declared war on anybody. I believe that there's one race, the human race, and that if we're at war with another human, we automatically are at war with ourselves because we all are connected. Please allow me to continue. When we're talking about personal security, when we bring up human rights violations in these de facto courts, okay, not de jure courts, but de facto courts, the term de facto meaning fake, all right, this fake jurisdictional system that they have put in place, all right? When we talk about sovereignty, when we talk about freedom, when we talk about human rights, they want to give us what is called lesser than civil rights. And I believe that the Yahweh El Shaddai of the Hebrews, who created me, I should not have to reduce the rights, the human rights that he gave me, and reduce it to a civil rights, asking a de facto government for the right to freedom, liberty, and justice, nationality, privacy, a right to livelihood. I should not have to do that, beg people to do the right thing. Okay? Now, let's continue. We talk about freedom from torture or degrading treatments. Now, please know that when someone comes and hijack you, kidnap you from your household, kidnap you off the streets in which you're traveling, it is torture when they do not allow you the right to take care of your family and provide livelihood because they have you caged up like an animal. That is torture. Okay? That is cruel and unusual treatment. Just because you inform them that as a human you have certain rights. They feel and they believe that our human rights are a figment of our imagination and that they supersede our rights. Yet, we have the United States of America has filed a petition with the United Nations saying that they would honor the international human rights and also the Hague Treaty, okay? But we are daily receiving and living in constant violations of these things just placed upon us involuntarily, all right? Now, then we talk about the right to the recognition as a person before the law. Now, the truth of the matter is we also talk about the right to be innocent until proven guilty. If they were saying people were innocent until proven guilty, they wouldn't just snatch people from their situation and lock them up. If a person is guilty, then they should be locked up. But the courts should decide that first. A peace officer, especially a de facto peace officer, should not be trying to serve as a judge on a street. No one is supposed to be imprisoned without having a fair and speedy trial, even one of their peers. And by the way, when we talk about peers, my peers are those that look like me, those that are of my culture, those that are of my nationality. Those would be my peers. But when you have people that don't even know their nationality, don't know that they are Shemitic Israelites in America, then how can we have a jury of our peers? How can I be judged according to the customs and my nationality and my religious beliefs, even though the Constitution of America and also when you talk about international law says that there should be no laws created to go against one's nationality or their religion. So here we talk about human rights violations. There we go again. If people are not recognized as humans, but are recognized as commercial property, then this is why they treat us with inhumane treatment. I like to deal with the term freedom from arbitrary arrest and exile. As you notice, this flows evenly and one is tying right in to the next. And we can just go on and on forever and ever, and this has existed even ever since I was a little child. And you think that it's getting better, but it's getting worse. But at the same time, America accuses everybody else of human rights violations when they are doing these things themselves. Now, here we go when we talk about arbitrary arrest. Just the other day, I was arrested for traveling. I should have the right to travel from one point to another, and they arrested me for that. Arbitrary. Then we talk about exile. Well, some people think that exile is just being kicked out of the country. But if I'm taken from my family, if I'm exiled from my household, I'm not able to provide for my children, my wife, etc., that is a form of exile, incarceration, unjustified. That is a form of exile, okay? It's not to the extreme where somebody is thrown out of a country, But exile is basically separation. All right, here we go. The right to a fair and public hearing. Here in America, first of all, the word fair definitely is not included in the justice system here. The hearings are not public. As a matter of fact, the judge himself, the person that's proclaiming to be a judge, a magistrate, tells you that it is his courtroom. Okay? The public is not aware of what's going in the courtroom. As a matter of fact, because now we have electronic devices that records what's going in, they have outlawed the use or people being able to even bring in electronic devices to record the court hearings. Okay? Every time there is any type of hearing, by law, there's supposed to be an audio copy of the event in which each and every person is supposed to be entitled to. It's supposed to receive a copy so that they can compare it with the notes that the stenographer takes. And that's very important. You know why? Because the stenographer works for the same state that the judge is being paid for and the prosecutors are being paid for, and that is a conflict of interest. So they tell her or him what words to put in and what words to take out. And so without the audio tape, there's no way of proving what was eliminated from the event during court. So it's impossible for it to be fair. And again, like I say, that if we cannot be judged by a jury of our own peers, then the justice system can never be equal. Not to mention that they take you out of your private matter and put you in a commercial situation so that they can make money off of what they perceive is a violation of their commercial rules instead of our right to live. They act like that supersedes that. Okay, now let's deal with a few more things if we can. The right to be considered innocent until proven guilty, we talked about that. The right from interference with privacy, family, home, and correspondence. Now, here in America, you have people who do not have background checks themselves. Pedophiles, homosexuals, not that I'm talking against homosexuality. People have the right to be whatever they want to be. But what I'm saying is that if I'm raising my child not to live in that way, and somebody takes my children and put them with somebody else that is lives that lifestyle, then quite naturally, without a background check, then automatically that is a violation of human rights. If our Maker and our Creator makes us to be parents, that means He has chosen us to have the right to raise our own children without interference from government. Okay? That's what it says. Freedom of interference from privacy, family, home, correspondence. Also, here in America, people just knock your door down. They claim they have a warrant. But the truth of the matter is that we have private property. And there are several laws, even here in America, that prohibits them from doing that. But they use the de facto law to enforce and threaten, coerce, and even torture us. And if we don't go along with this, then they make our life even worse. Now, I'd like to also add concerning the right to free movement in and out the country. Now, here they force us to get what is called a visa. The truth of the matter is that a visa prohibits us from traveling to and fro the way that we want to. And they refuse to tell people that there are several types of visa. They don't want us to know that there's a thing called a national visa, and then the other one is a federal visa. So they just force you to get what is called a federal visa so that they can continue to consider us as property of the state, which is forced slavery. Again, forced slavery, which is inhumane. Okay? Now, let's deal with the next thing. The right to asylum in other countries from prosecution. Article 15, the right to nationality and the freedom to change it. Here in America, they tried to tell us that we don't have no nationality. Okay? And not only that, they tried to tell us that our nationality is a U.S. federal citizen, and they determine who and what we are at their whim, at their will, and at their convenience. Okay? Now that there is clear. I mean, to me, nobody has more control over my faculties than I do. I don't think nobody is more qualified to decide who and what I am than me, myself, and I. And so therefore, in light of that, like I cannot tell them that they are Afro-Asiatic Hebrews, Shemitic Israelites, they cannot tell me that I'm black or colored or any other such federal U.S. citizen. Okay, let's deal with the freedom or the right to own your own property. Here again, they tax us here in America. They tax our land that we've worked for, land really that they have stolen. They stole the land and then they want to tax us for it. Okay? How can we ever have the right to own property when we're being taxed for what we've already paid for? And to be honest with you, the original Constitution of the United States of America said the taxation was only supposed to last for 2 years. And that, after that, 1776 to 1778, taxation is supposed to be illegal and unlawful here in America. Okay? Now I'm talking about the petition in which they have filed with the United Nations as being one of the nations of this earth. Okay? Now, so that there in itself is another form of enslavement. When we talk about the right to marriage and the right to family, they license us to marry. And when they license you to marry, that means that they have control of your marriage. That encourages what is called dissolvement of marriages or divorces. Okay? If we can get the government to stay out of marriages and family affairs, the United States government, this de facto government, this federal government, to honor that, then it would be less divorces and families would continue to stay together.
How you doing? You Dr. Elliott?
Yes.
Paul's downstairs waiting on you.
Okay.
He's got to leave.
Okay, here I come.
Urgently. So
All right. I want the honor and the privilege to further testify again sometime. My name is Dr. Elia Israel, and I thank you. Shalom.